Hello and welcome to our guest segment on the Breakfast Connect on Africa Business Radio. I am Chukunonso Modi. Hydroponics farming is an innovative method of growing plants without traditionally potting and soil mixing. The system can be any nutrient solution or inert growing media such as perlite and sand or anything other than traditional potting mixes or soil. In Nigeria, small-scale farmers are widely affected by climate change's effects, but those turning to hydroponics are starting to thrive. Joining me to talk about hydroponics farming, gains, challenges, and the future is Dr. Angel Adelaja, founder, CEO of Fresh Direct Produce and Agro-Allied Services, Fresh Direct Nigeria, and Senior Special Assistant on Agriculture to the Governor of Ogun State. Dr. Angel Adelaja is a development consultant and entrepreneur, popularly known as Miss Green Farming, the city farmer who wants to change how agriculture is perceived. She is the founder and CEO of Fresh Direct Produce and Agro-Allied Services, Fresh Direct Nigeria, an urban farming and ag tech company in Abuja, Nigeria. Fresh Direct Nigeria brings fresh premium organic produce closer to market with its stackable container farms. The company brings together communities and technology, focusing on engaging youth in agriculture. Through her consultancy, she formulates inclusive growth strategies for governments and organizations. Specifically, she develops good governance strategies to reduce health disparity, poverty, unemployment, and boost agricultural and economic development, and also is experienced with international relations, private sector engagement, and fund sourcing. Angel focuses on women and youth empowerment, utilizing grassroots campaigns, technology, and innovation to assist these groups in solving global issues. She wears many other hats as co-founder of WeFarmAfrica.org, an urban farmers network, agricultural advocacy organization, co-founder of SubNotify, a crowdsourced electricity notification service, owner of Zahara Impressa, an Abuja-based mega spa salon. She has served as technical assistant and research consultant to the Director General of the Office of Economic Development and Partnership in the Office of the Governor of the State of Ogun, consultancy, special assistant to the Senior Special Advisor to the President on Poverty Alleviation and National Coordinator of the National Poverty Eradication Program, NAPEP, and consultant to the Senior Special Advisor to the President on Wealth Creation. She has received many awards and recognitions, including Agro-Nigeria 2017 Agropreneur of the Year, HNWTY 2017 Woman of the Year Agriculture, World Economic Forum 2017 Young Breakthrough Female Tech Entrepreneur of the Year, member of the Nigerian delegation for 2013 and 2014 UN General Assembly. She is currently the Senior Special Assistant on Agriculture to the Governor of Ogun State, where she is championing programs like the Ogun State Tomato and Chili Pepper Empowerment Program, TOMAPEP, for women and youth, Ogun Access to Agricultural Finance Training, State Agricultural Technology Lab, digitizing the State Agricultural Land Allocation Process, and many others, while also serving on the advisory board of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Goalkeepers Program, an MIT server, a World Economic Forum Global Shaper alumnus, and a mentor to aspiring young entrepreneurs. Welcome, Dr. Angel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so let's start with you. How did you come into agriculture, particularly hydroponics? I mean, what made you go into it?
There was nothing spectacular about the process. It was really based on necessity. When I first started getting into agriculture, I actually started with goats. From goats, I tried vegetable production. I started doing greenhouse farming as well. I rented space and I was farming and producing. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I realized at that time was that was at the time where the prices for petrol had gone up. There was an issue on fuel subsidy. And even though the trucks that bring your products use diesel, they would still increase the prices. So you're really at the mercy of the transporters. And by the time you get to Lagos, you had issues because I started in Oshun. Okay. And what I realized was that I needed to get closer to market to start seeing more profits and to also, make sure that I'm not as vulnerable. So I started looking at what options there were. A lot of people were looking at greenhouse farming. Then greenhouse farming and getting all these new greenhouses was something people were starting to look into and getting very excited about, Yeah. But I wanted to really go beyond that, but I wanted to see what can I do to just increase it. And I started looking at controlled environment agriculture, controlled environment farming, that's when you are able to control the different parts and different environments that the plant lives in. And so one of the biggest and I think most popular aspects of CEA agriculture is hydroponic farming.
Okay.
And with hydroponic farming, you're controlling the nutrients, you're controlling the way the plant receives the nutrients. So, I always ask people, what do plants really need to survive? And people will always say they need dirt, they need water, they need, and I'm always explaining to them that no, you actually don't need dirt. You need medium for the plants to have steady roots, but it doesn't necessarily have to be dirt. What the plants need from that dirt is the nutrient, and so with hydroponic farming, you are bypassing that. You're providing a medium that allows the water to flow more easily to the roots and allows the roots to interact better with the nutrients and absorb the nutrients. It's almost like having a child. Yeah. And making sure that your child has access to all the good food, And so hydroponic farming includes aeroponics and others. They all come under hydroponics. Hydroponics just means that you're growing the plants in nutrient-filled water. With aeroponics, it's turning that water into a mist or an air, that the plants will start taking the droplets of water, the nutrients from droplets of water in the air. And then with aquaponics, rather than blending nutrients into the water, you're actually allowing a symbiotic relationship between fish and the plants. So the waste from the fish is actually feeding the plant. And that's a closed loop system. So for me, as I started researching it, I looked everywhere. I went to farms to visit farms. I think I got to a point where I said, okay, how do I make it happen? I get a lot of calls, a lot of emails, DMs and text messages from people saying that, I've been wanting to do hydroponic farming for so long. I've been wanting to get into hydroponic farming. How do I start? Where do I start? I don't know where to begin. And I think that you begin with looking for knowledge and information. And once you start to get that knowledge and information, the best thing to do is just do it. Just do it. So I started in my house, inside my bedroom. I first started testing with lighting and first started testing with some different mediums in buckets with some lighting, and I was seeing the plants were coming up. Then I started designing systems in my backyard. And so my first system that I designed was a Dutch bucket system. That's I used paint buckets and I turned them into a system that for cucumbers, tomatoes, and other things. The second system that I built and designed was a nutrient film technique system. That's an NFT system. And with that, you have water in pipes kind of going over the roots of the plants, So after that, it was like, okay, what other systems can I build? I started building systems for other people. And then it got to a point where it was like, now how do I make this even more space efficient? And I now started looking into vertical farming. So vertical farming and hydroponic farming are two separate things. With vertical farming, you are growing in 3D in a sense. Let's say in 4D, I guess. Because normally you can plant as much space as you have vertically, right? Horizontally. But with this, you now start going into how much can you plant horizontally. And so you now start to think about how do you stack your plants up? What are the most efficient ways in which you can have as many plants in one spot on the ground? So as many plants vertically in one spot on the ground. And I called my plumber, and I asked him, I want to design this. I showed him the design and he said, yes, it's doable, and I didn't have money to waste. So we pretty much went to construction sites, got offcuts of some of the material, offcuts of pipes, other things like that. The thing that I bought that was new was the pump and some of the lights. And when we did the first thing, he didn't even understand what I was doing. He just thought that, okay, if she's paying me, no problem. But once he saw how it worked, he was so excited, and he eventually became my partner in the business. And I love the relationship because anything I can think of to design, I bring it to him, and no matter what, he will find a way to make it work. He'll find a way to take that design that I've developed and that I've drawn and make it a reality. So that's something that has quite interesting for us. So that's how we started, and that's how I got into hydroponic farming. The rest kind of is history, and the rest kind of just from there, one thing led to another, and just the excitement of being able to design, and you're bringing in engineering, you're bringing in science, you're bringing in, innovation, creative thinking, all of those things just drive us, So.
Okay. Interesting story. I mean, it's not just farming, agriculture. There's also science and creativity and the works. Interesting. Now, I know you've touched on what it entails to start a hydroponics farm, but can you go more? Like, for someone who wants to start, what do you advise a person should start with?
Most of the time, sometimes I do trainings for people, and that's another question that they ask is, where do I start? And I tell people that your starting point is going to be unique to you.
Okay.
Because it's going to be based on what the variables are that you need to control for. So if you have a space inside your house, you have a guest room, and you want to turn that into a hydroponic system, farm, then it's a different starting point from someone who has an outdoor backyard space. It's a different system from someone who has access to electricity. It's a different system from someone who has access to consistent water. It's also a different system for someone who has a big budget versus a small budget. So the starting point for people is always going to be different. But like I said before, it starts with knowledge and understanding of hydroponic farming or controlled environment farming in general. So like I said, you start by getting knowledge, go for trainings. There are quite a number of trainings, not just myself, but so many others that are starting to come up in the field here in Nigeria as well. There are online trainings and tutorials. There are online practical trainings that you can actually, they tell you what you need in advance, and you can actually build as they train you online, Then there are places where you can go and help people set up systems on their farm. So you're learning as you're helping them set up. You can go for excursions and things like that. But at the end of the day, once because doing hydroponic farming, for me, for others, they get someone to do it for them, and then they just grow. For me, it's a lot about designing and building the system, and also growing in the system. So you also have to decide where you really want to be. So if you just want someone to provide you a system, provide you a greenhouse, provide you a hydroponic system, that can be done. You reach out to someone like myself or someone else, as well, and we can build a system for you. But if you want to actually learn how to build the system, how to manage and operate the system, then I advise that you also make sure you get that experience as well. And so you can be trained on that, or you can do it yourself. And I think that there's a big DIY, do-it-yourself culture. And at the end of the day, when you're farming, there's a lot of things you end up becoming yourself. I've become my own electrician, plumber, engineer, architect, and so forth. So you have to really just, I think, do it. Start at home, test it out. Test to see that you even want to do hydroponic farming, that you understand how to mix the nutrients and other things like that. Try it on a small scale, test, and if you fail, you keep trying, That way, when you now want to scale it, you can do it in such a way where it makes sense. And most of my colleagues in Nigeria, in West Africa, they didn't start big. They started small. Many started on other people's farms, where they started in their backyards. And once they saw that they were doing well, they now scaled it. That's specifically for hydroponic farming. I think people tend to want to go big. And when they go big, sometimes they go bust. So it's always great to go at the speed and at the pace that you can. And it becomes really fun, because I think if you are somebody who likes technology and innovation, so for example, it starts with just building the system. But then you can build the system to your taste. If you are somebody who works a 9 to 5 and you don't have time, and let's say you have staff, but you don't want the risk of them having any human error, you can automate the system. You can use technology, you can use coding, you can use the Internet of Things to try to design a system that is fully automated, that doses the nutrients, for you, that turns on the lights and turns off the lights as needed, so you can get as intricate as you would like. And you can also manage all of the variables that you would like, whether it's the light. People say, oh, plants need sunlight. No, but people tend to not look at agriculture as a science. For example, with what we're doing, we're leaning more toward the understanding of the scientific research that has been done on what is the best and optimum, variables that plants will need. It's the same as us. If you want your child to be very, very tall, first it's with the genetics.
Yeah.
Do you have a good quality, is your husband very tall? Are you very tall?
Yeah.
Then it now gets into the whole concept of, have you given your child, breast milk and all the relevant nutrients that they need at a small age, the vaccinations that they need? Have you now fed them the right food? Have you given them the right education? Same thing with plants. Have you given them the right type of lighting? So sunlight brings photons. Some of us remember that who were science students. Remember that from school. But those photons, there's specific wavelengths that the plants like. So you can even, it's not just white light. You can even give it red, light. You can give it blue light of a specific wavelength, and you're optimizing the light source that the plant needs. Then there's different macronutrients, that the plant also needs. So you maximize and give it exactly what it needs that will help it to grow. And then in terms of the humidity, in terms of the pH and other things, there are a lot of things that you measure. But at the end of the day, you're still bringing out a quality plant. There's some people who say, if you are mixing chemicals, it's not organic. You can be organic and do hydroponic farming. When you're doing aquaponics, you lean more towards that organic side. And so once you have a closed loop system and there are biological reactions going on, your farm is now now organic, as long as you're not introducing chemicals, pesticides, and other things. And that's the beauty about controlled environment agriculture, is that you can actually embrace organic farming, because you're now not using pesticides. You're controlling what comes in and out of the system, so it becomes a lot easier. And you can now start to use, heirloom seeds. You can now start to use, hybrid seeds, that are, still, things that people who like organic food would like. You're not using any genetically modified, seeds or things like that. So.
All right. There's so much to learn with hydroponics farming. And I like the whole analogy of your child, wanting the child to grow and the rest. Very interesting. This takes me to gains. Now, what's the ROI, that's in terms of investment and return of investment, compared to traditional farming?
Okay, so let me give you an example. Like I said, each person's farm is going to be different. Okay. So what you put in terms of infrastructure will vary. Yeah. But let's give an example of a simple, let's focus on, let's say, my container farms, for example, right? Okay. It costs us about 3M to set up and design the container farm. That includes purchasing of the container, fully installation of the hydroponic system inside the container, including all the meters, sensors, and everything that go inside the container, right? Yeah. Now, the container can hold about 3,000 heads of lettuce, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. And so for us, each head of lettuce, and when I say heads of lettuce, for example, let's assume it's 200 grams per head, right? Yeah. So 200, because lettuce is much lighter than other leafy greens. We have others like kale and cabbages and other things that are quite more dense, but let's go with lettuces as the base case. So you have about 3,000 heads of lettuce, and you can sell each head of lettuce, let's say, at around 500, and let's even be conservative. Let's say 200 naira, right? Yeah. That's 3,000 times 200. That's 600,000 in a 30-day cycle. 600. So if you now take that and multiply that by 12 months, that's about 7.2 million on one container. So you make your money back within a year. If you're doing things that may take a little bit longer, so for example, there are some leafy greens that take like around 40 days, right? Yeah. You have less cycles, but you're still making more money, because I'm going to sell my kale for 500 naira per bag, and it's a 200 gram, bag. Yeah. Or, I'm going to sell, and I also pre-wash all of my vegetables. So once you buy the bag, you can actually eat it straight from the bag. It's triple washed with vinegar to make sure that there's no microbes or anything that can kind of turn your tummy, because a lot of people complain, and even I've had an experience where I had a salad somewhere, at a hotel in Abuja, and I woke up the next day in the hospital with typhoid. And, my dad was like, how in the world did you get typhoid? And the doctor said the most likely source was the salad. So that's something that's very important for us to take into account, is the quality of the food that we eat. So if you think about that in terms of return on investment, you make your money back within a year. You will have expenses, definitely, the cost of water, the cost of electricity, the cost of your staff, the cost of you're using nutrients, the cost of the nutrients and your disposable products. But for the most part, you should be able to see return on investment within a year, depending on what it is that you're growing. Now, different systems grow different things. So the smaller the crop, more you can produce within a need more space. So you'll find that you cannot do so much more than what you can do on the ground, with tomatoes, or you may be spending more money on lighting, to make sure that the tomatoes have the right lighting for the different parts of its cycle, during the flowering phase or the fruiting phase. So, but in terms of return on investment, hydroponic farming increases your yield, it reduces your space, and it reduces the cycle time for your products to actually grow. So the same thing with greenhouse farming, but hydroponic farming is even better. So what you may be losing in terms of high costs to start or infrastructure costs, you're gaining in terms of a level of consistency that that your plants will be able to produce consistently each time. Yes, it becomes very difficult in Nigeria, but the beauty that I love about hydroponic farming, when I started, I was using a generator. Now we have a solar system. And
fantastic.
Once you are able to make agriculture green, you even become more proud, because we always say agriculture, you have a green thumb, but you may have a green thumb, but you're not a green sector. Agriculture has such a high carbon footprint in the way it affects the environment, but with hydroponic farming and just with controlled environment agriculture, you're doing your part to try to also reduce the carbon footprint that you have. So if you can make sure that your system runs on renewable energy, you're doing your part. You're not just pouring water into the ground and then good water is just gone. You're recycling your water. So as you're using the water, the only water that you're losing is the water that's being taken in by the plant and the water that's dissipating into the air. But most of your water cycles back into your tank and then goes back to the plant. So you reduce your water use significantly.
All right.
Now, the other thing is that you just also make it easier for the people who are working for you. So nobody wants to suffer. Nobody.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
They want to live a good life. They want to make good money. They want to make more money than they would in traditional methods. A lot of young people leave the rural areas because there are no amenities for them in those rural areas. Now people are starting to go back to rural areas for agriculture, but you still have insecurity, you still have issues of lack of amenities, good schools, internet, even networks sometimes in some of those rural areas. So, for a lot of young people who are getting into agriculture, what is luring them to the rural areas to farm is really just the profits.
Yeah.
But with urban agriculture, it is a lifestyle, because yes, you're making your profit, but you're in an urban area. You may work close to where you live. You can see where your food is coming from. You know that you're adding to the food system, and you're doing it in a nice, eco-friendly way, because even now, the transportation from where your farm is to where you're going to sell your product is even less.
Yeah, true.
Because you're not coming from the village, so, and you feel good. It feels like a 9 to 5. You go to the job, you put on your lab coat, you enter inside, you get your sensors, you log in, you look at which systems you have to take care of, what you have to do, you have to measure certain things for the farm. So it's almost like you're an agro-scientist, you're a techie farmer, you're a smart farmer, and so it becomes something that becomes a status symbol for young people. It's a way for them to do agriculture and feel like they're doing like they work in a tech company as well. So it's quite exciting. I think it's what attracts a lot of young people into the space, and it's what's driving a lot of innovation into the agricultural space as well.
All right. I love the passion in which you're explaining it. It shows that it's not just a job for you, but something you enjoy so much. Are there any support from government as regards hydroponics farming?
That's a good question. Support specifically for hydroponic farming, I would say not really. Okay. I do know that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development sometimes subsidizes things like pumps, but these are pumps that you can use on a large scale farm, or you can repurpose it for a hydroponic farm. They have a lot of solar pumps that they do subsidize. That means that you can get it at a discounted price. It's not free. A lot of young people it's not just young people, but anybody. You can write to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and write them asking for the purchase of that item. And if they have it, they let you know, and then you can now pay them, the discounted price for that. I do believe sometimes they have netting and polyplastics for greenhouses. Yeah, that's about it that I know specifically for hydroponics. Okay. I do know that they had an initiative on e-agric at a point. I don't know where that's gone. I don't know what's going on with that yet. At the, then there's other programs like CBN. I don't know if they have any instruments for hydroponic farming, but I do know that NERSL Microfinance Bank, has some funds that they get from that they use for people who want to start in agriculture, and so you can apply, for funding for your farm, but it's going to be for the farm in general. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a hydroponic farm or a greenhouse farm or whatever, as long as you have your economics of production and how you're going to make your money back, and they look at that, then they can release funds for you. BOI also has something like that, but I think you have to apply under greenhouse farming. And so you can apply for hydroponic farming under that, and they should be able to fund that. But those are loans. They do have MSME grants, but that's for everybody. And those are things that you can apply for. That I think they've done some of those things through the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. At a state level, in Ogun State, we do have some programs coming up. Okay. We already have a tomato and pepper empowerment program, and so we started with just training on open field production, and now we're empowering some farmers on irrigation. And so the next step for us is to get them into greenhouse farming and also hydroponic farming. And so we also have space at our Agricultural Technology and Innovation Lab, where people who do want to do automated controlled environment agriculture can come and actually design and use the design space for that. So for those who are interested, they can come and use it. And that's set up at the Ogun Tech Hub in Kobape. It's on the way to Abuja. If you're coming in from Lagos, it's on the way to Abuja, just before you enter Abuja. Private sector is doing a lot. You do see a lot of ag tech fund sourcing programs, a lot of organizations like the Vertical Farmers Association, Hydroponic Farmers Association, another one called Agritecture, where they do have people in that space come together. And they're doing amazing things with agri-technology. I have attended a program called Seeds and Chips. Okay. It's a global program, and when you go, I was surprised because when I went there, they had the last one that I went to was in Italy just before COVID. And when I went, I was so surprised to see Obasanjo there. Wow. See Baba, but he's still driving the narrative and the conversations on agriculture, and now being an ambassador for agri-technology and talking about the importance of agri-technology and how Africans and Nigerians in particular are embracing, agri-technology. And so I was happy, they were just from the continent. There were a lot of Europeans, a lot of Americans doing so many amazing things. And you see so many institutions that are actually supporting them and embracing them and financing them to be able to continue to innovate. Because, of course, it's one thing to use technology to produce, but it's another thing to keep doing research and development, to keep creating new technologies to continue to produce in more innovative ways. And you're not always able to use your profits for R&D. And so you see, I have a lot of colleagues around the world. One of them are these guys growing underground, and they grow in the subway system in the UK. So they take the abandoned subway system lines, and they've got a little space where they can produce the same thing that I'm producing. And they've gotten a lot of grants from the government, from private sector, to just do research and development on how to improve their production. and so I think that's really, awesome. And I think having someone like Baba to be able to champion, this for us is also is a great tool, a great mechanism. And I do hope that more people, I think also the vice president has done a lot to champion the controlled environment agriculture space, and even the MD of NERSL. I think that's one of the things. I also saw him at a program in South Africa where a lot of us hydroponic field came together to have our first conference. And so that was the first real conference that was had on hydroponic farming on the continent. And the MD of NERSL was there, and it was great. I was happy to see that Nigeria would drive it.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting, honestly. From you, I've learned that hydroponics farming is an innovative one. But then with every business or with every venture, there are challenges. Can you tell me what are the challenges with running a hydroponics farm? Sorry.
Absolutely. There are a lot of challenges. The challenge comes mostly from being Nigerian, in the sense that when I first started, a lot of the things that I needed to start, I couldn't really find here. Yeah. So I found myself having to just be creative and finding ways around it. So, where other people would just buy certain materials, I had to use locally accessible things, quite what it should be. Like, I know a lot of my colleagues, they affect the pH. You see a lot of us having to import things like cocoa coir, cocoa peat, import things like balls for certain types of hydroponic systems. Other people are being creative in using rice husks or other types of husks to be able to use as a medium, because we don't have people producing some of those things locally. I would love to see somebody who is doing coconut production, coconut oils and other things, saving the husk to be able to produce that medium for us, Then things like some of our sensors, some of our meters, the IntelliDosers and other things like that, we don't really have them here. I remember when I wanted to buy some Oasis grow plugs because they're really, really good. And the closest place you can get them is Kenya. Then the issue of shipping, the issue of clearing, and stuff like that now becomes an issue. And how do I get some of the benefits? Sometimes when you're importing agricultural equipment or things that you need for your farm, you're supposed to get waivers and other things like that. And it's really hard to be able to get them from the federal government. If you're not a big person, sometimes it becomes difficult to get access to those things, or sometimes you don't understand. Like now, if to import rock wool, they don't realize that, okay, rock wool can be used for farming purposes. They believe it's for insulation. They believe it's for housing. They believe it's for cars. So many things that can come up. And so getting people to understand the uniqueness of our industry is there. Then the issue of electricity has always been there. When I started, it was there. It's still there, but now it's a lot easier because you so for example, you don't have to pay everything at once. Yeah. So as you are making your profit produce, you can also pay. That's another innovation that I think is really going to help our sector, because being able to partner with solar companies, being able to partner with irrigation companies, being able to partner with so many different people helps to make it easier. And when we didn't have those connections then, it was hard for people like myself. But now, I think anybody who wants to get into hydroponic farming now will find it a lot easier. Now, even Amazon ships to Nigeria. So all of those things now become easier. So anything that you're really looking for, you'll find it. Then also improve seed. Different varieties of seeds for what you want to grow. You can now find them more. You have Rick Swan here in Nigeria. You have East West Seeds here in Nigeria. You have so many different seed companies that provide a variety of different products. So you can find your strawberry seeds. You can find your nasturtium seeds. You can find seeds for all sorts of things that you may want to grow in a controlled environment system. So I would say, yes, there are challenges. And then I think also human error, making sure that your staff are trained and that you can find ways to reduce the human error is also a big one, because immediately you have run out of electricity and your system stops working. What's your backup?
True.
Or immediately. So you have to design your system in such a way where it may be able to retain some water for your plants to be okay while your system is down. So those are things that I've learned over time. But when I was going through it, it wasn't funny at all, but now I can look back and laugh, and yeah. every day we're improving. I think also this concept of urban space. So you can't really talk about hydroponics without talking about urban space. Yes, you can do hydroponics in a rural space, but you get the most benefit from it when you're able to do it in an urban area. And so, sometimes this concept of urban agriculture, you can do urban agriculture without technology, but when you now couple it with hydroponic farming or other technologies that you can use on the farm, it makes it more efficient and it increases your yield on those small plots. You see in Lagos, you see in Abuja, so many empty plots. People are not ready to build on that land. And now with the economy the way it is, people are not ready to spend on building houses when they need to eat. So this is the time really to be able to get some of those urban plots and use them for hydroponic farming, use them for urban agriculture, but getting people to understand that, even getting states to understand that, or even legislate for that. Some states like Lagos, I think they have a use it or lose it policy, where if you're not using a land, they either take it away or they fine you for it being an empty plot because it's a security issue and other things like that. Why not give them the option to say, okay, if you're not doing that, you can lease it to any or put it in trust in any of these programs where it can be leased to urban farmers, that can now use it for other things. You also have empty warehouses, that hydroponic farmers can now use, to go grow food. And then even just the way we build our houses, changing the way we do architecture in Nigeria will also change the way we do agriculture in Nigeria. I went for a mission. Their off gardens, they have rainwater harvesting embedded into all their buildings. So when you wash your hand, you may be using fresh water, but when you flush a toilet, you're using rainwater.
Yeah. Oh.
That has been stored. They have tanks that store, that water. So anything that is not for consumption or hygiene and things like that, it's rainwater. And I thought that was so efficient and that was so useful. Imagine just being able to say, okay, houses that have rooftop farms, or houses that have green roofs, or houses that harvest rainwater get some sort of tax or reduced fees, for approvals or things like that from state government. You would actually have people want to do that more often. So there's a way in which hydroponic farming and urban agriculture in general can also start to help us change the way we have some of our policies on housing. There's so many other policies in other sectors that actually benefit controlled environment agriculture as well.
All right. Brilliant solutions, brilliant ones. Now, lastly, what is the future of hydroponics in Nigeria? What do you think is the future?
I don't even want to limit it just to hydroponics, but I want to talk about the future of agriculture in general, because for hydroponic farming, the future is bright. With renewable energy, with access to more materials and equipment, and with access to financing, and also with young people just being inquisitive and creative and curious about it, and more people entering the field, you'll see that more people are actually starting to engage in hydroponic farming. I think what now needs to happen is to make sure that there's regulation, to make sure that we're all doing it to standard, and you'll see that it also will give us an edge to be able to export our products in West Africa. You'll see that there's less import from Europe of certain products that we don't normally grow here, and you'll see that we don't focus on bringing these products from far distance. A lot of times, some products that we can't get from overseas, we get it from Jos. You don't need to get it from Jos when you can grow it in Lagos. You don't need to get it from Kaduna if you can grow it in Cross Rivers, or if you can grow it in Port Harcourt, or, and the beauty about hydroponics is that it's so portable, that you can put it anywhere. You can literally grow anywhere. You can grow in a bus. You can grow in a house. You can grow on a roof. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book, but think about it. Wherever you want to grow, you can actually create a system that you can grow at the airport, and then focus on exporting to West Africa. So the future for hydroponic farming is bright. The future for controlled environment agriculture is bright. And you look at universities like Covenant University, Landmark University, they're actually putting this kind of training into their curriculum for their agri students. I know Landmark has reached out, about that. And so you see that they are interested in making sure that the students, the agricultural engineers, the agricultural economists, and those who studied in various fields in agriculture understand the opportunities and benefits of controlled environment agriculture. You see universities overseas, and a lot of Nigerian students are going there to get training on these things and coming back. But now you see universities here starting to drive this, and you also see private sector individuals like myself driving these concepts and driving people into this sector. So I think you've seen milestones in medtech, in I don't know what they call it, mobility tech, all these Ubers and other things like that.
Yeah.
So imagine using all of those different innovations with a hydroponic, company. So you literally can automate your system, use your cell phone to manage your farm, and then make sure that you use your cell phone for the logistics. Use your cell phone to make sure that your products get to your customer, and then also make sure that you're accepting your money from them virtually as well. It's beautiful, and for those who are willing to see how other technologies feed into controlled environment agriculture, the sky is the limit. I think what would really make an impact is if you start to see, there's a young man who reached out. He wants to be able to produce his own hydroponic lights in Nigeria. So hydroponic LED lights. That would be a game changer for us if the pricing can now reduce. Most people are importing those lights. I started with T3 Philips lights, and those were the ones that I could find locally, right? From there, I now went to LED lights, but even those, had to bring them in. Meanwhile, if somebody could produce those lights locally, if somebody could produce some of these solar pumps locally or solar panels locally, you start to see, or even batteries locally, you start to see that people will get into this much faster and scale much quicker. So the future is bright, and I'm actually looking forward to it. And I like the fact that controlled environment agriculture and hydroponic farming in particular is something that is a gender neutral business, because a lot of the physical tests, so for example, regardless of your gender, regardless of your age, regardless of whether you have a physical disability or not, you can actually do this kind of farming. So it may be much harder to bring your wheelchair to a rural farm.
Yeah, true.
But with a hydroponic farm, you can be in your wheelchair and wheel through the different rows and actually take care of your crop with ease. Fantastic. So it's a game changer, because it actually evens the playing field for everybody that wants to.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, the future definitely looks bright for hydroponics in Nigeria. Thank you so much for an amazing conversation, Dr. Angel. It was truly enlightening.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about this. I could talk about it all day. So I appreciate your audience.
I could feel your passion. Thank you so much. Okay, that was Dr. Angel Adelaja, founder, CEO of Fresh Direct Produce and Agro-Allied Services, Fresh Direct Nigeria, and Senior Special Assistant on Agriculture to the Governor of Ogun State. That's all for now. Until next time, keep listening to Africa Business Radio. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Africa Business Radio, and at Africa Biz Radio on Twitter. I am Chukunonso Modi, and thank you for listening.